Greetings. This is Greg for DC Black Church Review. So yesterday I had an opportunity to visit a church called, I don't know if you can see this, but it's Asbury. Asbury is a United Methodist church, and it is in Washington, D.C. The address is 926 11th Street Northwest. So I guess a major landmark would be from the convention center, it's maybe 2 blocks over. So Massachusetts and 11th would be a ballpark where it's at. It's actually L Street and 11th. I've had fun over the last couple of years, 5 years or so, visiting a number of churches and getting a feel for what they're like. So first, I'm going to go through factual data on the church, and then secondly, I'll give you my general impression. So a few data points. This church was founded, I guess, built 181 years ago. So it's currently 2117 if you want to do the numbers. So it's an old church. Secondly, it's United Methodist. I was actually on my way to an AME church, which I ended up not being able to find, and saw this church. And one of the things I'm amazed by in DC, particularly in the Northwest area, is the fact that on every other block almost, starting near the White House, there's a black church. And there's a process going on where these churches are being acquired and then redeveloped into large office buildings because the value of the property obviously has increased in 181 years to crazy numbers. The church is very well maintained, external and internal. When I got there, it was a little muggy in September. Air conditioning worked great. Next is parishoners. The church is similar to many of the churches in that area in that it's the same story. Most of the congregation, I would say at least half the congregation, has moved out of the area and now lives in Prince George's or other places. And so this is one of those situations where you have a fairly large church. I think they could probably seat up and down maybe 2,000 or 3,000 people. But they had a comfortable 600-700 people spread through most of the pews on the down. And I'm including a couple of photos at the beginning and the end so you can get a feel for what it looks like inside. When I went there, second week of September 2017, I was only there for about a half hour. The door folks, the men at the door were very nice to me, waited for the service to start and then allowed me in. I went in, sat down near the back on the left-hand side, and I sort of caught it at the point when I think the choir was finishing up and they were about to start the main service. So service is supposed to start, I believe, at 10 o'clock. I arrived there a few minutes to 11, and I had a chance to hear the choir. So the choir was kind of interesting because the choir is mostly made up of older women. I think you might be able to see that in the photo that I've taken. The first song that I heard was actually a classical song that was very well done. I don't know what the name of the song was, but they did a good job. The voices, you could tell, were a little bit older than in their prime, but they did a terrific job, and I thought it was beautiful. They then did a number that was more of a Negro spiritual where everyone could kind of join in and had a really good beat and, you know, could enjoy. The band did a good job. So I liked that. The next thing I would say is that overall the whole facility is well maintained. At 11 o'clock I asked for programs so I could show that to you guys. Couldn't get one because they'd run out. Which doesn't say much because I think they don't get a lot of new people coming there, so I think printing just enough means there's not going to be any waste. I guess another data point that makes me think of is what are their audio visual aids like? And I would give them I mean, I'd give the church overall an A in general, but one of the things that I noticed they were missing as I think about it is that most modern churches now have a video screen. And what this screen allows is that they can actually post songs or announcements or anything on that video screen. And more importantly, if you don't use your glasses, they can put text size up on the wall or on the screen so that you could sit in church and actually see and hear everything fine. So I would say this is maybe a little bit of a drawback that they don't have that I think would be a nice enhancement for them. I guess I was fascinated also because, as you'll see in the photos I gave you, this is one of those churches where sort of the parents, it's a parents' grandparents' church. So if you look in the photos, you'll notice that there are very few people that are below 60. It's kind of like late 60s as a start, all the way up to people, you know, in their 80s or 90s, and it's that kind of church. So, and then you have a few young couples where it's more like my grandkids or maybe my older kids are there. There's a little bit of that, but I guess what I'm really looking for me is something kind of in the middle where you can meet people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, you know, the whole range. And from what I could see, that's really not what this church's demographics are. Most of the younger people that are affiliated with the church kind of go elsewhere. And this is more of a grandparents' parents as a way for the community of all these folks that have been together for 20, 30, 40 years can kind of be together and still worship together on a regular basis. I would say, so the next question is, would I go back? For me, based on the target demographic, 40s, 50s that I'm looking for, it's not a great fit for me as a church. But one of the things that I really enjoy when I go to these churches is the opportunity to meet interesting people, sort of get an opportunity to quickly become part of the community. And I definitely think that was available there. The people are very nice to me, very gracious in every way. I actually like to bike around the city, and they didn't have any place to lock my bike up in front of the church, so I had to do it across the street. Not a big deal, but it's another thing that just popped to mind. Another issue, if you had to drive here, is that I would say it's 3 blocks to the metro, because the convention center is right there, 2 blocks away. You know, the bus routes and so forth are pretty friendly in terms of access from public transport if you wanted to go that route. I would also give them credit for where they're located, because the restaurant set up in that area of the city is excellent. There's a couple of places across the street, and then there are places all over in terms of getting good food to eat. I didn't get the great church smell from the food downstairs phenomenon going, so I don't know if they have that available. I did notice on the back of the church they had some kind of senior citizen or senior, helper facility. I don't know if it's housing included, but I thought, it's reflective of the population of the church, so they have that in terms of being that organized. I was intrigued because in terms of, again, my overall impressions, when I got in the church, I was really, one of the things I love about black churches is great music, great singing, and really how that brings the community together spiritually for everybody to sing together and be together. And I was a little surprised when they started singing opera, because obviously it's not a sing-along situation in terms of people having, in the audience, just having randomly the voices that could handle sing-along with opera. I noticed at Abyssinian Baptist in New York, they actually kind of do this routine as well, where you have a black church, they do Negro spirituals that are consistent with the population, but they also have opera. And so it's kind of like, I would say I was shocked when I first heard it, and I was thinking, darn, I'm really looking forward to hearing some good down home, everybody get together and sing songs. And when I heard the opera, my initial reaction was, oh no, opera, let me get out of here. But then I heard the folks singing, and they knew their stuff, and they had variety in terms of different voices singing the lead and so forth. And I thought afterwards, I was like, wow, I didn't think I would enjoy it, but I actually did. So I would say that, I generally enjoyed the service that I visited, though briefly. And would I go back again? I probably would, maybe get there earlier. If I was in my late 50s, early 60s, it's probably one of the top 10 churches in the city in terms of decent-sized congregation, nice people to meet, etc. I'd say the only disappointment I'd have, word outside of me, if you have to drive there, is just that that area of the city can be expensive parking or difficult to find parking, although the churches have been able to grandfather in the right to use certain spaces during certain hours and park the cars on an angle so that they can get more cars in. So I think if you get there early enough, the parking will be free or very inexpensive and not a big deal. But I don't know what the future holds for that. Overall, I would say I have a really good impression of the church in terms of how well maintained it is, how organized it is. The people are very nice to you, as they are everywhere else. I would say the only other bad thing I've noticed is that, again, when you look at the photos, you'll notice that this doesn't seem to be a very artivisually inclined church. So, for example, you'll notice that I could barely see the members of the choir as they sang. So a video screen would take that in. And the other issue I had was that for churches with no audiovisual capabilities, they do things like there's no lights that light up the stage or stage area. So everybody in that area is actually kind of dark. So if you're close, it's not a big deal, but the further back you are, it kind of really stands out. At any rate, thank you for your time and viewership. Have a great day, and I hope this is helpful in your evaluation of churches in the DC, or black churches in general, and this one in DC. This is Greg. Have a wonderful day. Okay.